Hi, this is Dr. Alan Barnard. I'm CEO of Goldratt Research Labs. I'm super excited to announce the launch of our Goldratt Dice Game Challenge. The game has also just been voted Model of the Month by AnyLogic, so best simulation model internationally for the month. So super proud about that. The dice game, for those of you who remember reading Dr. Eli Goldratt's best-selling novel, The Goal, played a key part in that book. It was the way that Alex Rogo, the main character, gained a really important insight that I think is relevant to all of us that are leading organizations or managing organizations today, which is why is it often so difficult to predict what a system will be able to produce? Even a relatively simple system like this one in a dice game, which is a small factory, it's made up of 5 machines or 5 processors, and the output of every process is determined every day by the throw of a die. So it can produce somewhere between 1 and 6 units per day with an average of 3.5. And the question is, if you run this factory for 100 days, how much will it produce? The obvious answer sounds like 3.5 times 100, so it should be able to do 350. Really? Will it really be able to do 350? The correct answer would have been, it depends. So what does it depend on? And this dice game allows us to discover what it really depends on. And to give you a brief insight into the secret, it really depends on 2 factors. The variability that we see in the performance of each of these machines. So a process that can vary between 1 and 6 units per day versus a process that will vary between maybe 3 and 4 units per day. Both of them will give you the same average output of 3.5 per day, but the output of the system will be very different. The second part is the level of interdependencies between the processes, or the level of decoupling or coupling between the processes, and that's represented by the buffers here. So this game will allow you to see, first of all, what happens if you don't have any buffers, right? How much will the output really be? The second scenario is if you just add small buffers, how much will it improve it by? The third scenario will do is, well, what if you increase the buffer substantially? Up to what point can you improve the performance where thereafter there's not much use in increasing the size of the buffers? And then we can also play around with reducing the variability. And I want to show you a really interesting kind of a secret, a very counterintuitive way of improving not just the output of this little factory, but to do it in a way that makes it also much more reliable in the commitments that we have to make to customers and to shareholders. So if you want to learn more about it, you're just going to click on Learn here, and you can close it down. The game is available as a download for both Mac and Windows. We've got currently a promotion running for beta testers that they will get 14 days free access to really help us stress test the game and share with us any new insights that they've gained and maybe any modifications they would like to see in the game. If you haven't yet read the goal, you can get it right from the app here. Just click on it. It'll take you to Amazon and you can download the book there. It really is worthwhile reading the book. So let's get started for the quick demo. So there's some finances here. Every unit of product or service that this little factory produces, you get $100 for it. So if you run it for 100 days at 3.5 units per day, multiplied by $100, your sales should be 35,000. You've got variable cost of 50%, and the target or the budget here is 11% net profit. Let's see what happens if we have zero buffers, so zero decoupling in between these. Let's see what happens. You can see the Gantt charts here at the bottom. The blue is showing the level of blockage, and the red is the level of starvation that each of these little machines are subject to, and that's where you lose capacity. You can see there's a lot of blue and red there, and when we look at the numbers, wow, it's immediately obvious in the actual. We expected to get 350, we only got 159, and we lost a lot of money. So what changes can we make? What if we just add just space for 1 unit in between these? What we've just experienced is essentially a chaotic system. It's a system that has multiple constraints because in each case here, the demand for our products is higher than the average capacity of each machine. So we have multiple constraints. We simply do not have enough capacity in any of the machines, but they're also interactive. They They are highly coupled. That makes it a chaotic system. Chaotic system has got a positive to it, which is small changes can have big positive or negative stress. So we add little space buffers of just one in between. Let's see how much that can make a difference. Immediately I notice here that there's a lot more green. Still a lot of blue and red, but there's a lot more green here. So I expect my output to be higher. We got 159 previously, it's now 187. That's a substantial improvement. We can quickly click the rerun button, make sure we're not fooled by randomness. So it will just throw different dices. You can see the dice throws coming up here. And let's see, this one looks even better. Less blues and red. Let's see. Wow, 216. That's a big improvement from 160. So let's look at what if we add substantial buffer. We make these buffers, say, 5 each. Let's see how much that will improve. We went from 160 to between 180 to 10. Let's see there. We can see a lot less blues and red. They're 264, right? So we're about 25% below what we expected to get. And now here comes the secret. If I asked you, how would you dramatically improve the reliability? Because in today's market, customers and investors won't accept that you are only achieving 75% of the target that you've committed, especially if you're losing money, right? The investors will probably ask you to be fired. So is there a way of improving both the reliability but also keep the output as high as possible? And here's the little trick that I developed during my PhD research is what we've done by adding buffers is we've taken a chaotic system, we've made it complex. So there's still multiple constraints, but they're relatively well decoupled now. So how can we get it back to a simple system? A simple system has a single constraint. Here's the trick. If you remember the hike from the goal, right? It was these kids that Alex Roger took out on a hike and they had to get to the destination at the same time. And he said, okay, go. And they kept on spreading out. And there was this poor little kid called Herbie. Herbie was a little bit overweight and he had this huge backpack and they kept on having to wait for him. And Alex said to him, how are we going to make sure that you don't keep spreading out, that we have to get there together? And he came up with this brilliant but very unpopular suggestion. He said, what if we put Herbie at the front? Then the queues won't spread. And if we wanted to calculate how long it will take us to actually complete the hike, all that we need to know is how fast can Herbie go. We're going to do the same here. I'm going to achieve this, and there's a number of ways of doing that, but this is the simplest. I'm just going to prevent process A from throwing sixes. That will drop its output, average output to 3. You'll see our budget has also dropped, so it's 3 times the 100 days times by the $100. So our budget has dropped to $30,000 with a more realistic net profit projection of 5%. And we want to make sure that A is never blocked. We've got enough orders there because they're arriving at about 3 to 4 every day, or 3 in this case every day. So we shouldn't be running out of orders. We shouldn't be starving process A out of orders, but we can increase this buffer behind it a little bit. So let's increase it to 10 just to make sure it's never blocked, and let's run it again and see what happens. And I can immediately see here this green line is almost now completely green. There's no starvation and blockage there. We got up to 282. That's only 6% difference. And by the way, we're now making a lot more money than even what our plan was. Because in this little game, it's been set up that if you are reliable, customers are willing to pay you a bit of a premium. If you're unreliable, you just get the standard price. But now the trick is here. So I want you to imagine what's going to happen. And you can view stats here where we show all the stats of the number of units, the work inside of the system, which is made up of the work in the backlog plus the work inside of all the buffers. You can also monitor your time in the system and backlog. You can also view various graphs here. So you can look at the buffer as it changes over time. This is the backlog. This is the buffer between A and B. And this statistics you can see to say, will we benefit by increasing the buffer, of maybe adding some initial stock there so that we're not starving this process. We also look at capacities per day, and you can view it for any of the machines and see how that varies. And we even have histograms here to show you what the distribution of the total lead times are and the distribution of the total WIP is. But let's get back to the little process Gantt chart. What I want to show you here is, imagine you are facing the situation, right? And a consultant is coming in and they look at this and they say, wait a minute. there's a tremendous amount of waste in the system. Each of these machines can produce substantially more than 10% more than process A. What we're going to do is we're going to take it as we had it. So we're going to prevent this from throwing sixes. We're going to reduce all of them to have the same capacity. That would be super efficient. And why is this one getting a higher buffer? Let's bring this down to 5. This is a very typical thing that happens is the company has figured out how to become really reliable, where they need some catch-up capacity, where they need buffers, and then they hire some consultant that comes in and said, oh, this is super inefficient. You should balance the capacities and reduce the buffers as small as possible. And unfortunately, we've seen the consequences of that on medical supply chains where there's just not enough buffer in the system to cope with the variability or sharp increases in demand. So let's see what will happen. Remember, we were at about 280. We were making really nice money. Everybody was happy. Now we've saved about $1,000. Look at this. We're down at 233 and losing money. This is what happens when you're trying to be super efficient and you're cutting away your protective capacity or your buffers. So I hope you've enjoyed this. There's a whole bunch of functionality. You can do scenario comparisons in here. We've created the scenarios that I've just shared with you. These are just standard options. You just select them one by one. You can run the comparison and you can say, I want to run it for 50 rounds. And it will run literally each of these for 50 times, so we're not fooled by randomness, and calculate the mean of those 50 rounds and the standard deviation. So you can see really how the chaotic balance system compares with a complex one that has small buffers of 1 versus bigger buffers of 5. The simple scenario I showed you that's unbalanced with a single bottleneck at A, and then a more complex scenario again where they stripped out all of our protective capacity and buffers. And you can see the dramatic impact, right? Is that we are achieving very high levels of performance, 90% reliability on our simple one. We've got very high sales and very nice profits and good return on investment, beating all the other rounds. The red ones, of course, is the ones where there's no protection, no decoupling. So I hope you enjoyed this. You can download it right now or play it inside of the cloud on any of the device. Go to goldratsdicegame.com and we'd love to get your feedback. At the moment, in this beta release, it comes with a 14-day free trial, so it will expire on the 22nd of July. So once you download it, please don't procrastinate it. Try it out over the weekend and let us know what you think.